Thank you.
transition to our next speaker, and that is Shauna Walesh, who is the Life Safety Educator and Public Information Officer with the Green Bay Metro Fire Department. So, Shauna.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Lynn, if you want to take off, I can just talk directly to the camera because I can go a little bit about my background. So,
There we go.
as said earlier, I am Shauna Walesh. I work with the Green Bay Metro Fire Department. I kind of have a unique job title, a Life Safety Educator and Public Information Officer. I'll go into a little bit more into that a little bit later. So I got started, similar to Tucker's history, I also came from a firefighting family. My grandfather was a volunteer fire chief for Princeton for over 40 years, one of the longer serving fire chiefs in the state of Wisconsin. And then my dad also was on Bellevue Fire Department. We recently merged with Bellevue. So my father and I actually work on the same department, which is kind of funny. But going back into where I got started out. So my first job was at Taco John's, pretty typical first job. But I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I wasn't really into the food service, just really didn't seem too exciting. So I kind of leaned on actually being a vet or a music journalist. Now, I got into Explore programs. So I tried the veterinarian. Didn't really like that because animals can't talk back and tell you what's wrong. So I'm like, that's not really my thing. And music journalism is a very specific job where you need to move out to like LA or New York. And I didn't want to be far from family. So I was kind of thinking around like, what do I want to do? And I actually stepped into lifeguarding in high school and got into the Firefighter Explorer program through Green Bay Fire Department, which is where I work now. Through that program, I really, really enjoyed the fire portion, but also the medical side too. So after I graduated high school, the day after I graduated, I started EMT Basic at NWTC. It was a summer-long program, and then I transferred to Chippewa Valley Tech because at the time they were the only program that had a actual fire medic degree. Now NWTC and Fox Valley Tech and some of those other more local colleges offer that program, but I was out in the Chippewa area for a small part of that time. So I do have my firefighter and my paramedic. I got hired on Green Bay in 2013 and been there since. Now, I kind of mentioned my current job title. So I was a firefighter paramedic at Green Bay Station 6, which some of you might know, that is by Fireman's Hill or Park. That station is one of our busiest ambulance houses, so I got a lot of paramedic experience. But my current job opened up and I thought it was kind of intriguing. So my current job, I work within the fire marshal's office, and I am like the communications director. I am the person that speaks on the news for really big incidents or department matters. But then I also get to talk to everyday people on a daily basis about what firefighters do and educate people on safety. So a little bit about my career and background. If you want to go back to the PowerPoint slide. Now the slide that I have, you'll notice that it says Explorers. So that first slide. So I also teach for our Explorer program. I got such a kick out of it when I was an Explorer that I wanted to help other students out too. So it's typically a year-long program. This year we're doing some virtual classes, but again, really good program for kids, and we have kids from other counties that are involved in the program. So again, really awesome. So there are a lot of different career paths that you can go within the fire service. You probably heard Tucker talking about volunteer. I actually was a volunteer firefighter out in the Eau Claire area when I was going to school. It was a great way to work and go to school, but also help out your community at the same time. Again, there's also different options. So I work in a structural or urban fire service department. being Green Bay Metro. There are Wildland, which is more of your out west, all that stuff. Airport firefighting, which is very specialized. And then there's also the medical side. So Green Bay Metro Fire is, everybody is cross-trained in medical. Some people are EMT basics and some people are EMT paramedics, but every single medical personnel is cross-trained in firefighting. You don't necessarily have to go into a fire-based EMS service. You can go to private, which some of our local private services are County Rescue or Gold Cross, or some flight-based medical services. All right, so I'm sure some of you are very familiar on what a firefighter is. Probably have seen some of the shows, Chicago Fire, or maybe a movie, Ladder 49, that's a little bit older, but probably have seen, I think Grey's Anatomy now has a firefighter version of the show, Emergency 911. They do a good job, very Hollywood, very glamorized, but that doesn't mean that our job isn't cool. You can go on to the next slide. So you're probably wondering, what does a firefighter actually go on? Probably fires, right? But fires don't happen every day. But that doesn't mean that we aren't busy. So I have a long list, or a medium-sized list, I'll say, of the type of calls that we go on just for fire personnel. So you'll see fire alarms, vehicle accidents, hazardous materials. Some of those pictures that I have there are from actual calls just within the last couple of years. In the middle is one of my friends, firefighter EMT Sarah Cooper. She was in part of a cat rescue. I think it was Muffins was the cat's name. Got stuck in an air vent system, so they were able to rescue the cat. But the very bottom I have EMS, and so some fire departments don't go on EMS calls. That's where those private ambulance companies come in, but we do. And that accounts for over 75% of our call volume is EMS. But again, with some of those pictures, the one on the top left was a call for a car that actually drove right into a house. Miracle that there was a person sitting on the couch for that particular call and the car drove right by them. So if the car had been just a few inches to the left, probably would not have been a good day. So you can go on to the next slide. So you kind of heard me talk a little bit about paramedic and stuff. And I know Mindy, our next speaker, is probably going to do a really excellent job of talking about it. But a paramedic is, I like to compare it to an RN or a nurse in a hospital system, but a paramedic is out and about in the community, whereas a nurse is more so in a controlled setting in a hospital. So the different types of calls a paramedic will go on. This is a very, very short list. We go on a variety of calls as a paramedic, but chest pain, allergic reaction, trauma. The picture on the left was a call from this last summer, a car that rolled over. So it kind of looks like everybody there is firefighters, which they all are, but actually there's a person on the far left that's kind of holding on to the car, actually is giving patient care as they're working on stabilizing that car. So as a paramedic, you kind of get to do some really cool things out in the field. So there's other specialties when you go into the fire service. I just briefly mentioned hazardous materials calls. We actually have a hazardous material team for the county, Brown County, but we also can go into other counties to assist as well. I was, for a short period of time, I think 5 years, I was on the hazardous materials team. It was really cool to see how different chemicals interact and how to mitigate those type of situations. Arson investigators, pretty much you investigate fires, why they start or who started them, all of that. And then you have like kind of my two job duties, the public information officer and the educator. So yes, so that was the down and dirty of what I do and kind of a short and quick version of what a career in the fire service entails. So does anybody have any questions?
Just, transitioning from being an active firefighter to your public information educator, is that I've talked to some other people, and it seems like some folks get into that for brief periods of time because maybe they have, small children or whatever, but then they transition back. So tell me a little bit about like your experience with transitioning into your role now and kind of how you see that moving forward.
So for my role now, I typically work a Monday through Friday, a normal job. This is like the first normal job I've had as a professional. So before, when I was a firefighter paramedic, I would work 24-hour shifts, and our shift was specifically called a California swing, which means I would work 3 24-hour shifts in a week, and then I'd have 4 days off, and then the next week would start. I have a small daughter at home, so being able to switch into this job was really good. However, I did not take this particular job due to that. Being a educator, and I guess going back, when I was on the floor, I saw a lot of people in our community that needed help, and this was a really good job. I know this is a very common thing that people say when they go into public safety, but you really want to help people. But this is the one job where you truly, really get to help people on a daily basis. And it's a very rewarding job.
Awesome. Allison, do you have any questions in the chat or yourself?
None in the chat. I appreciate I didn't realize all of the different avenues. I guess my quick question, to specialize in one of these, hazmat or the arson investigator, is that like an after the fact, after you've worked a while, proved yourself, or are these opportunities more on the front end?
Yeah, so that was a great question. So some of these are more so like you got hired on fire department full time and you're looking to advance in your career, whereas others, you might see fire inspector there. You can get hired at a city or village as just a fire inspector. You don't have to do your firefighter training, your paramedic, EMS. Water rescue is one that a lot of younger personnel get into, like, or do training before they get hired, because that is kind of can be really fun to get in water, and it's a bit of a challenge too on those type of rescue calls. So yeah, it kind of really depends. Now, arson investigator, I like to point out too, is another one where a lot of people that have that arson investigator, some of the people that work in my office used to be sheriff deputies, or used to work in the police line of work, and then they transferred over to fire. So
Gotcha.
yeah, there's a lot of different options and a lot of different routes you can go. So that's the magic of it.
Nice. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Shauna.
Thank you for having me.